morning, dear people of the internet, and welcome to Parcel Evening, where your uncle goes outside to buy cigarettes, even though you know very well that he never runs out of those any other day of the year. And then someone knocks on the door obnoxiously loudly, and a bag of gifts has appeared before the front door. But sadly, you have to wait until your uncle is back from buying cigarettes, which will only take 2 minutes, even though the gas station is at least 10 minutes away. But you're a child, so you don't have any consciousness of time. So those 2 minutes seem like an eternity. This is a classic experience for Dutch children on December 5th every single year when they celebrate the birthday of a man called Sinterklaas. As a child, and up until actually like last week, I took this kind of for granted, this lying to your children, this blackface thing we'll talk about, and even though I heard concerning things about this celebration in Austria, I was thinking about it and it's actually quite concerning, so I thought we should talk about it and dive into it. And since this is also the history of Santa Claus, it's just interesting and sometimes a little bit disturbing and sometimes a little bit cozy. So today we're going to dive into this and talk about it because that's fun. Now grab yourself a nice cup of hot chocolate or any other beverage. Hot chocolate is appropriate to the topic because a lot of people drink that on Sinterklaas evening, but anything is okay because staying hydrated is important. Now I do have a quick service announcement. I am trying to get through college and grow this channel at the same time because they can help each other. So it would be wonderful if you could subscribe. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, which is soon, but we are very well on the way. And watching my videos also helps a lot, like from the beginning to the end, if you like them. So I would appreciate that a lot too. So thank you. And now let's get started. Since Sinterklaas was kind of the starting point of this video for me, and since a lot of my audience is not from the Netherlands, I thought it would be nice to tell you how Sinterklaas was for me as a child and how it is right now, as a starting point to go into the history and other countries, how they celebrate and how this led to Santa Claus and everything else. Every year, halfway through November, steamship arrives in the Netherlands with an old man with a beard, an undefined amount of his helpers called Pieten, a merry-go, which is his horse, and a lot of gifts for all the children. On this Saturday morning, most Dutch children will go out to greet this man in their nearby harbor where a celebration of this arrival will occur. Almost every town has their own celebration, and every year one town gets chosen to be the official arrival ceremony place, and that gets broadcasted on TV. So the servants go out and throw out these tiny cookies called pepernoten, and then Sinterklaas gets on his horse and rides around and waves at all the children in a parade. There's also the manager Piet, called head Piet or main Piet, whatever. It's called hoofdpiet in Dutch, and he often has the task of carrying the staff of Sinterklaas and a big red book which allegedly has a list of all the Dutch children and whether they behaved or not over the past year, so if they're going to get gifts or not. After this arrival ceremony, we enter a 3-week period in which children can put their shoe next to the chimney in their houses every evening. Parents won't allow their children to do that every evening, but you technically could do it every evening, and then you sing a song to basically call to Sinterklaas and the Pieten, so they will come and bring you a gift in your shoe, which is called schoencadeautjes or shoe gifts. These gifts are often candy or chocolate letters or small gifts that can fit in a shoe. And during this period, Sinterklaas also has a visit at most schools and often also in places like sport clubs. So it is a big thing. This all comes to an end on December 5th, which is parcel evening or pakjesavond or gift-giving evening, something like that. On this evening, kids get more gifts, they eat more candy. This evening is known as the birthday of Sinterklaas, which is actually on December 6th, but we celebrated December 5th in the evening because the next day Sinterklaas has to go on his boat back to Spain. I, as a child, heard the rumor that on December 6th Sinterklaas was going to Belgium for some reason. I don't know. There's a lot of rumors because this is all like folklore and we are telling the children it and the children truly believe in it. This experience became even more nationally unified when the national broadcasting people started this program called Sinterklaasjournaal, which is a news program about Sinterklaas for children in 2001. I feel the need to mention Diewertje Blok here. She was the presenter of the Sinterklaasjournaal until 2022 when she passed away a year later from having cancer, and a lot of people of my generation are still kind of shocked by this because she was an icon. Like, she did so much for this entire national celebration and getting the feeling, and she was just really good at her job. She was also a presenter of other things, of course, but she did this really, really well. Sinterklaasjournaal is very important nowadays to keeping children anticipated for the entire month of Sinterklaas, and this program is not just like by like 3 children. I think 99% of Dutch children know this tune.
Het Sinterklaasjournaal met Diewertje Blok.
When they hear it and know what it's from, and it gets them excited. Every year there are two main storylines in Sinterklaas Journaal. Like, they make up a story every single year. One before the boat arrives, it starts a week before that. And then there's another storyline leading up to December 5th. And in these storylines, it always seems that the boat will not be able to arrive for some reason, or they will not be able to get the gifts to the children. But in the end, it always works out. This year there were actually a few controversies in the Sinterklaas Journaal. At first, they recommended children to get an emergency kit, which the government has been urging people to do for like the entirety of the year. Like, it's a kit where you just have a radio, first aid supplies, food, whatever, to survive without electricity for 72 hours. And a lot of people have been saying that this is just fear mongering and whatever, but they actually urged children to get this, or urged children to ask their parents to get this, which is wild. Whatever you think about it, it's just wild to put this in a children's program. Like, it's a TV program targeted at 7-year-olds. They will get scared about this, and it has been effective. The sales for emergency kits has gone up since, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it. They also had a storyline with the military at the Pakjeshuis, which is the headquarters of Sinterklaas, where he stays and where all the Pietens stay and whatever. The military was there for some reason, and I just don't think that's a great idea either. Just let kids be kids. There were more problems this year, but I just wanted to tell you this because it shows how the Dutch government has been using this children's program to push their own agenda this year, and I think that's slightly problematic, if not even more than slightly problematic. My favorite part of Sinterklaas Journaal was always the weather forecast, because they had this animation showing how well Sinterklaas and his helpers can go on the roofs to put the gifts down the chimneys, because if it was raining or snowing, he would fall off the roof in the animations, and I love those a lot. There are also countless movies and books about Sinterklaas. The media about this is wild. There is so much. There's even a horror movie, maybe even more than one. Now we know how Sinterklaas works nowadays, we need to know the history of it, because you cannot pull off something like this on a national scale in just a day. Sinterklaas is a nickname referring to Saint Nicholas, who was a bishop of Myra in around the year 300. Myra was a place in what we now call Turkey. In 550, this bishop was declared a saint by the Catholic Church of Greece because of the benevolent work he did while he was still alive. In the meantime, a lot of myths surrounding this guy emerged. He was even known to have revived dead people. The myth I heard the most was that Saint Nicholas walked past a house with 3 crying sisters who were supposed to become prostitutes because their father didn't have enough money to have a dowry for them to get married. And then St. Nicholas threw some money at them or something, and that's why we now throw with candy during this period. So that's how that came to be. It's a myth, of course. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? St. Nicholas was reported to have died on December 6th, so that's why his life is celebrated now on December 5th and December 6th in some other places. This celebration goes back to the 14th century, and since St. Nicholas was the protector of children, amongst other things, children were also celebrated at this celebration. One of the oldest traditions of this celebration is the children placing their shoes so that Sinterklaas could leave a gift for them in the shoes. In the 14th century and after that, children would go to church and leave one of their shoes there, and when they came back the next day, there would be some candy in their shoe for them. Nowadays, most people don't associate Sinterklaas with Catholicism anymore. It's common knowledge that it's the root of the celebration, but it's not a thing that only Christians celebrate here. In the 1600s, Catholicism became problematic in the Netherlands because this is actually a pretty Protestant country, and those two were fighting with each other. That's an interesting history, but not for right now. It's important that Catholicism was pretty much not allowed in most Dutch places anymore, so Sinterklaas was also not allowed because it wouldn't fit in with the Protestant values. In some places it was not even allowed to celebrate, and in other places it was just highly discouraged. In the beginning of the 20th century, the celebrations around Sinterklaas became bigger and bigger again, and it was during this time that the first boat landing, as I explained earlier, was celebrated. In 1850, writer Jan Schenkman published a book named Sint Nicolaas en zijn knecht, which translates to Sint Nicholas and his servant. This book is responsible for most Dutch Sinterklaas traditions that we still do to this day. In 1934, the first official arrival of Sinterklaas was celebrated in Amsterdam, so that's the start of this national level of celebrations. In 1952, the first official arrival was broadcasted on TV, and since then Sinterklaas has been unstoppable in the Netherlands. One thing I haven't really explained yet is Piet. All servants of Sinterklaas are called Piet, which is a common Dutch name also. And it works kind of like the Smurfs, like there is a main Piet, there's a panic Piet, there's a gift Piet, and so on. There's an infinite amount of options. When I was growing up, Piet looked like this. He was black, often white people would play this, and often they had big loop golden earrings, red lipstick, and an afro wig, which is problematic of course, and luckily it has changed over the past 10 years, but we'll get to that. The lore of Piet is even more problematic in this context. It's not entirely clear where this Black Piet version comes from, and yes, that's how they were commonly referred to. Again, super problematic. Anyhow, in about the 1850s, the first literary references to this Piet person came into existence, and in this time the servants had the task to find the naughty children and punish them. I don't know which punishments these were exactly, but I assume it's the same punishments I was threatened with as a child, and that was getting spanked with this thing called a roux, just a bundle of sticks, or even worse, getting kidnapped in the sack of Sinterklaas, yes, I'm not making this up, and getting brought back to Spain, which is wild. Threatening your kids with kidnapping is not good parenting, of course. Piet was known to be the bad cop for a while, but the image has changed a little bit. Piet is now known as this quirky guy that can do anything, jumps around, and just gives candy and gifts, which is a lot better than being the punishing evil guy. But I think making bad guys or scary characters with this black caricature thing is highly problematic. I learned this Sinterklaas song as a child that I want to read to you, and the translation is not super great because I translated it myself and it's not my job, but I tried my best. The song goes like this: there's a knock on the door, a soft knock, a loud knock. There's a knock on the door, who would it be? Don't worry, my child, I'm a good friend, because even if I'm black as soot, I mean well. This implies that the child would be scared of Piet because he is black. Again, highly problematic to teach your children stuff like this. If the fearmongering of black people and the blackface weren't problematic enough for you, we need to talk about the fact that Piet is a servant for a rich old white guy. The Netherlands has a huge problematic history about slavery, so it makes sense that people connected the Black Piet thing to this history of slavery and started protesting against it. Eventually this led to something called Zoetzwai Piet, or Roetveeg Piet in Dutch. It's still kind of a thing here, but it has gotten a lot better. The reason for this is the initial reason for this blackface thing. This excuse was that Piet has to go down the chimney to deliver the gifts in the shoes of children and then get soot all over his body so he would become black. But like, that's not how life works, and it's kind of weird that their clothes stayed all clean and everything and just their faces and hands and everything became black. And where did the afro wigs come from? You know, it doesn't make any sense. So they actually leaned more into this excuse and made it make sense instead of still being on the racist train about this. This happened way too late, by the way. This thing started in 2014 and that's only 10 years ago, and it's still bad. That it's now a little bit better, it's not an excuse for being good, you know? But I'm glad they made some changes. In some other countries, the servant of Sinterklaas is a literal demon named Krampus. This Krampus is mostly a thing around the Alps, and his job is to find the naughty kids and punish them. This Krampus was initially played by like painted people as well, mostly, but now they are more like horned red creatures, like a stereotypical demon. I just still cannot understand why parents think that it is a good idea to scare your children into behaving. It's just an example of bad parenting, because children don't work like that. But okay, that's just my opinion. The Krampus thing is still celebrated, but I think it's less serious than it was before, when Christianity was more important and the idea of going to hell was more a thing. Like, I know that still exists very much in this day and age, but Krampus is more of a celebration nowadays with parades and such. In some Eastern European countries, the celebration is just Sinterklaas going past the doors of the houses where children live, an angel and a devil as a helper, and they just give out candy to the children. And I think that actually sounds a lot nicer than anything. The national Sinterklaas celebration is not the only way Dutch people celebrate Sinterklaas. There's also this secretive Santa Claus celebration on Ameland, which is an island in the Netherlands. The information I have about this is very vague, because outsiders are not allowed, and I don't live on Ameland, I live on the mainland, but I will try to explain it as best as I can, because it's a very interesting, dark sounding thing that came from the Krampus folklore and where that came from, and then also the Sinterklaas folklore / Christianity thing, and they smashed it together and then something entirely new came out, so that's interesting. And it's also again very interesting how secretive they are about this. The history goes back to the 19th century, as far as we know, because we don't know. And it's a whole other thing. The Santa Claus celebration takes 2 evenings. The first evening is for 12 to 17-year-old boys, and the second evening is for men aged 18 and up. Children and women are supposed to be off the streets during these evenings by 5 p.m. and they can be just at home or they can be at so-called open houses, but they're only allowed in these open houses when they're escorted by a man. After 5, a group of people called baanvegers, or like street emptiers, go through the streets and empty the streets, and they do that waving with white sheets and with baseball bats and sticks and whatever. In the meantime, some people are trying to move from house to house secretly and trying to not get caught by these baanvegers, because if you get caught, you just get brought home. That's not a big issue. It's just a game of just breaking the rules. I don't know why this is important, but it was on the Wikipedia page. Around 8 p.m, all street lights of Ameland are turned off and the windows of houses are supposed to be darkened. So if you're outside, you cannot see the lights coming from inside the house. Because if light shines through the window, there is a chance that your windows might get smashed. Yes, weird. I don't know why. Why do we need to add this violence to this celebration? I don't know. In the meantime, the men dress up in white sheets with paper scraps sewn into them, a hat made of cardboard or hay, and a mask traditionally made from a fabric bag with holes for eyes and the mouth cut out. And they also have a horn to make noise, not because they're dressed as unicorns, because they're not. Then these Sinterklaas roam the streets in groups. When 2 groups meet each other, they grunt at each other and then end up shaking each other's hands very aggressively for some reason. This process sometimes unmasks women or children that have snuck into this Sinterklaas thing, and they are not allowed to. And if they get caught, they get threatened with being beaten with sticks and chased home. Some houses have a light above the door which invites the Sinterklaas inside of the house. In these houses, on the night for the young boys, they will just perform a theater piece, and on the night for the adult men, they will get a drink and perform some fertility ritual, which involves the woman dancing or jumping over a baseball bat. Again, I got this information from Wikipedia and I have not ever seen this, and nor will I probably ever in my life. There was a story like last year or the year before that with people that snuck in, and that actually happens more often, and they sometimes also get unmasked during the Sinterklaas group meetings, and then they get tested if they can speak the dialect of Dutch on Ameland, and if they can, they either get thrown in the water or in a pile of cow dung. I think this all sounds very unhinged, and I really don't have more context for you. It's as unhinged for you as it is for me. At the end of the evening, all the Sinterklaas go to the open houses as well, where some of the women are, and they dance and party with the women. And in the end, the men have the right to escort one of these women home in the shortest way possible. So you are not supposed to linger on the street when you're escorting a woman home. But on the Wikipedia page, it said that they have the right to do this. So that's kind of weird. As I said, the Sinterklaas thing is a combination of German heathen traditions surrounding chasing ghosts away to keep the women and children safe, and also just of Sinterklaas in general. We don't know which German heathen traditions exactly, because the origins of this thing are very vague. For me, it sounds like an evening where toxic masculinity is celebrated. But again, I'm an outsider. It doesn't sound safe for women. Like, it sounds fabricated safe because it's a sort of performance, but it just doesn't sound very fun if you're not a man. Anyhow, Sinterklaas has been celebrated in many different ways, in many different places, in varying degrees of seriousness in Europe. There is more, but I believe it's mostly a combination of things I've already told you. The last step in this story is Santa Claus, so get ready to go to the USA, or stay there if you're already there. Before I did my research for this video, I thought that Santa Claus was just Coca-Cola morphing Sinterklaas into Santa Claus for their ads. And I think I'm not the only one who was told this when they were younger. But luckily that's not true. I don't want the people that this year released an ad animated by AI replacing people with animals because humans are too hard for AI to animate. I don't want them to have made Santa Claus because it's not cozy or nice or whatever. Anyhow, in the 17th century, New York was actually called New Amsterdam, after the capital of the Netherlands, which is Amsterdam. Because Dutch people colonized part of America, colonization is very bad, so naturally the idea of Sinterklaas and Christianity in the form that it was practiced here also came over with them. The evolution of Santa Claus started in 1823 with a poem called A Visit from St. Nicholas. In this poem, Santa Claus arrived on a sleigh pulled by flying reindeer to give gifts to children. And over time this thing started to lead its own life, leading to the Santa Claus we know today. A kind, round man living living on the North Pole with its elves. While Sinterklaas gets to chill on the beach 11 months out of the year in Spain, Santa Claus is just stuck in the North Pole with only darkness for 6 months out of the year, or a little less, and just coldness all around the year. It is whatever you prefer. I think the takeaway of this video is that the history of Santa Claus and Sinterklaas is not all just cozy and fun. It had a lot to do with creating fear in children, which that's weird. And we have managed as Dutch people, which is honestly not too surprising, to get some of the racism inside of this, and that's also not too great. But at least it has changed over the years, and it's now actually mostly a cozy thing, aside from the controversies in Sinterklaas funeral we had this year, because there's even more. I don't know what went wrong this year. Well, I do know, but the government should stay off the broadcasting channels. That's a whole other thing. Anyways, there are problems, but there are new problems. And Sinterklaas in itself is just all nice candy. I'm curious how you celebrate Sinterklaas, or whatever the equivalent is in your country. If you do, of course. I know that a lot of people also don't, so that's also great. But tell me about your celebrations around this time of year or other times. I don't care. I just want to learn about the other cultures sometimes. We're going to talk about cultures next week, because there's a big thing happening inside of the world of colors, literally, and we need to talk about it. But that's for next week. Thank you for watching. If you like my little video, please press the wonderful shiny like and subscribe buttons. And then I will see you next time. Ciao!